Welcome, everybody. She didn't just blow up on TikTok, she exploded. In only a few years, Nara Smith went from a name nobody knew to one of the biggest food creators on the internet, pulling in millions of views with every post. But here's the twist. She isn't a chef, she isn't running a restaurant, and she isn't following the usual quick recipe trend. Instead, she built her empire by doing something that feels almost old-fashioned, making absolutely everything from scratch. We're not just talking about baking bread, something plenty of creators already do. Nara takes it to another level. Mozzarella? She'll make it by hand. Toothpaste? She's made that too, while wearing couture dresses. It's absurd, it's excessive, and that's exactly why it works. Each video feels like you've stepped into a surreal version of domestic life, where nothing is out of place and every meal looks like a piece of art. And the setting? Always perfect. Her kitchen is spotless, her outfits are immaculate, and her hair and makeup are styled to a level that looks straight out of a vintage film reel. She leans heavily into a 1950s housewife aesthetic, creating the illusion of a woman who balances everything flawlessly. 3, now 4, small children at home, meals prepared from scratch, and not a single moment where she looks overwhelmed. This isn't just content, it's a theater. And that's what pulled people in so quickly. Viewers weren't just watching food being made, they were watching a fantasy, a lifestyle that feels at once impossible and irresistible. But here's where things get interesting. This rise wasn't built only on cooking. It was built on something deeper, something psychological, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it. At first glance, Nara Smith's videos look simple. Just a young mom cooking for her family, but the real reason they go viral isn't the food itself. It's the feeling her content creates. On social media, nothing spreads faster than aspiration. People don't just want to be entertained, they want to imagine themselves living a better version of life. And Nara delivers exactly that. She doesn't just cook, she cooks in a spotless kitchen while looking like she just stepped off a runway. She doesn't just share recipes, she presents entire meals that look effortless, elegant, and endlessly repeatable. The reality, of course, is much different. She's 23 years old with 4 children under the age of 5. For any parent, that alone is overwhelming. Yet in Nara's world, the kids are quiet, the house is pristine, and there's never a hair out of place. This is why many people find her content unsettling. It doesn't appear to be genuine motherhood. It appears to be a carefully curated fantasy. And that's the trick, because it's not so far removed that it feels impossible. If she were filming yacht vacations or private jet dinners, most people would scroll past and think, that's nice, but it's not my life. Instead, her content hovers just close enough to reality to sting. Many people have kitchens, families, and kids. They just don't have the endless time, money, or energy to maintain that kind of lifestyle. That tension in between what's possible and what feels just out of reach is exactly why people keep watching. For some, it's inspiring. For others, it's infuriating. And for Nara, it's the perfect recipe for attention. But there's another ingredient in this mix, something that takes her content from aspirational to downright controversial. And it's this hidden element that fuels so much of the conversation around her name. Nara Smith's content isn't just aspirational, it's provocative. And that's where the real genius lies. She understands something that many influencers never fully grasp. Outrage spreads faster than admiration. Every time she posts herself making cheese out of citric acid or brushing her teeth with homemade paste while wearing designer gowns, people can't help but react. Some laugh, some mock, and some get genuinely angry. But no matter the reaction, one thing happens every time: engagement skyrockets. This is what's known online as rage baiting. It's when content is designed to be so over the top, so absurd, or so perfect that people can't resist commenting on it. And whether you love it or hate it, you're playing right into the strategy. What makes Nara even more fascinating is that she's fully in on the joke. She knows exactly how overblown her content looks. She knows people are going to roll their eyes when she whips up a full gourmet meal with toddlers quietly sitting in the background. That's the point. The performance is the product. But here's the catch. Not everyone realizes she's self-aware. And this is where gender bias creeps in. If a male creator pulled these stunts, people might call him ironic, clever, or even satirical. But when Nara does it, many assume she's being serious, because society still struggles to see women as intentional comedians. The result? She ends up pulling even more engagement because half her audience doesn't realize she's winking at them. In other words, she's not just cooking for her family, she's cooking up controversy. And every time the internet argues about whether she's serious or satirical, her brand grows stronger. But the debates don't stop there. Because one of the biggest controversies surrounding Nara has nothing to do with cheese or toothpaste. It's about who's really behind the scenes in her so-called perfect household. For many viewers, the question isn't just how Nara Smith does it all, it's whether she's doing it alone at all. And this is where things get murky. In a 2022 GQ interview, both Nara and her husband, Lucky Blue, mentioned that their toddlers were out with a part-time nanny. Seems straightforward, right? Months later, in one of her TikToks, Nara flat out denied having a nanny. "It's just me, my husband, and any family that's available to help," she said with a smile. So which is it? Did they quietly let go of their nanny, or was this a deliberate attempt to keep the illusion alive? That contradiction sparked a wave of speculation online. Some accused her of lying. Others defended her, pointing out that situations change. But one thing was clear: the conversation struck a nerve. And that's not surprising. The topic of nannies has always been a sore spot for celebrities and influencers. On one hand, society harshly judges mothers who hire help, as if accepting assistance somehow makes them less of a mom. On the other hand, admitting to paid help shatters the fantasy of the do-it-all mother that so many of these women build their brand around. Take the Kardashians, for example. Their reality shows document every corner of their lives, down to their personal trainers and glam squads. Yet, you rarely see their nannies on screen, even though everyone knows they exist. The message is clear. The fantasy of perfect motherhood requires hiding the people who actually make it possible. For Nara, this contradiction is even more important. Her brand is built entirely around the image of a mother who balances everything, cooking, children, and beauty, with no help at all. If she admitted to having nannies, some would find her more relatable, but others would see the entire performance collapse. And that's why the nanny debate became such a flashpoint. It wasn't just about whether she had one, it was about whether the fantasy she sells is authentic or staged. But that debate leads to an even bigger question. Is Nara's content just about food and family, or is it quietly signaling something much deeper about gender roles, tradition, and identity? The word Tradwife has been floating around the internet for years now. It's short for traditional wife, a lifestyle that idealizes old-school gender roles, where women stay home, raise children, and dedicate themselves fully to homemaking. And whether Nara Smith wants it or not, her content often gets pulled into that conversation. Why? Because everything she shows, homemade meals, perfect outfits, a spotless kitchen, and devotion to her husband and kids, fits right into the Tradwife aesthetic. The twist is that Nara never openly preaches about it. She doesn't sit in front of the camera declaring that a woman's place is in the home. She doesn't talk about politics or gender roles. Instead, she quietly presents a lifestyle that signals those values without saying them out loud. This is what makes her so divisive. Some viewers see her as harmless, just a mom sharing what she loves. Others argue that, intentionally or not, her content glamorizes a past where women were expected to give up everything for their families. Her collaborations don't help quiet the speculation either. She's appeared alongside other creators like Ballerina Farm, another influencer known for her own Tradwife-style content. In that case, the husband openly discouraged hiring nannies, pushed against medical choices like epidurals, and made decisions for his wife in interviews. When people see Nara aligning with figures like that, it fuels suspicions about what her brand really represents. But here's the truth. Nara thrives in the gray areas. She never takes a firm stance, and that makes her even more marketable. Brands can attach themselves to her wholesome image without worrying about political baggage, while audiences can project their own beliefs onto her. If you want to see her as a feminist homemaker, you can. If you want to see her as the perfect wife, you can. That's the power of ambiguity. And it's also why her content sparks endless debates. Because at the heart of it, she isn't just showing recipes, she's selling an idea that stirs up nostalgia, controversy, and fantasy all at once. But the real storm begins when you look at how people react to her. Because Nara doesn't just divide opinions, she ignites culture wars. When it comes to Nara Smith, people don't just watch her content, they argue about it. And those arguments often split into two very distinct camps. On one side, you have the men who idolize her. To them, Nara is the blueprint for the perfect woman. She's young, beautiful, and devoted to her family. They see her as proof that women shouldn't chase careers or independence. just marriage, children, and domestic bliss. In their eyes, she's not just cooking meals, she's cooking up the ideal of femininity they believe has been lost to modern feminism. On the other side, you have women who watch Nara and think, that's what I want. They look at her curated life and say they'd rather be a stay-at-home mom than grind through a 9-to-5 job. For them, Nara's content taps into something deeper. A disillusionment with modern work culture, rising childcare costs, and the exhausting reality of trying to do it all. But here's the catch. Both reactions oversimplify the truth. Because Nara's life isn't just about choosing to be a housewife. It's about being able to afford the luxury of that choice. Cooking from scratch every day, raising 4 kids, maintaining a spotless home, and still looking flawless. It's not just a matter of effort. It takes money, time, and privilege that most people simply don't have. That's why some critics push back so hard. They argue that this isn't empowerment, it's performance. That glamorizing this lifestyle sets unrealistic standards for ordinary women while ignoring the financial and social realities that make it possible. And yet, that tension is exactly what keeps the conversation alive. Because every comment, every debate, every argument about whether Nara is empowering or regressive only fuels her reach. She's not just making food content, she's become a cultural flashpoint. But to really understand the power of her brand, you have to peel back the illusion of simplicity. Because behind the spotless kitchens and flawless outfits is a truth that most people miss, and it changes everything. On the surface, Nara Smith makes everything look effortless. A loaf of bread here, a handmade cheese there, all while her children sit quietly and her kitchen gleams like a showroom. It feels simple, wholesome, almost nostalgic, like stepping back into a time when family life was slower and purer. But here's the reality. There's nothing simple about it. Cooking from scratch every single day isn't just time-consuming. It's expensive. The average parent doesn't have hours to spend making mozzarella or whipping up elaborate meals after juggling childcare, work, and bills. For most families, convenience isn't laziness, it's survival. And that's what makes Nara's content so striking. She presents a version of motherhood that looks attainable, yet it's built on foundations most people don't see: wealth, time, and resources. For many stay-at-home moms today, the role isn't a romantic choice. It's often forced by circumstances. Childcare costs can outweigh a second income. Families end up living on one paycheck, not because it's glamorous, but because it's the only option. Meanwhile, Nara flips that script. Her world shows motherhood not as a struggle, but as a polished performance. No visible mess, no stress, no exhaustion, just beauty and calm. It's the illusion of a simpler life, one that never truly existed unless you had money and help. And that illusion is powerful, because it whispers to viewers, maybe you could have this too. And when they realize they can't, it sparks either envy or outrage, both of which keep the engagement flowing. But here's the twist. Nara's story isn't just about homemaking. It's about the business of selling fantasy. Because in today's digital age, fantasy doesn't just entertain, it pays. And Nara has mastered turning that fantasy into influence. At the heart of Nara Smith's success is one undeniable truth. She isn't just selling food, she's selling fantasy. And in the economy of social media, fantasy is one of the most valuable currencies there is. Think about it. If her videos were just tutorials, they'd blend into the endless sea of cooking content online. But by layering aspiration with performance, she breaks through the noise. She's not teaching people how to cook. She's showing them an idealized version of life that looks just close enough to reality to feel attainable, but just far enough to feel unreachable. That gap, the distance between viewers' lives and the fantasy she presents, is what drives people to watch, comment, and share. This is what marketers call accessible aspiration. It's not the billionaire yacht lifestyle that feels completely out of reach. It's the spotless kitchen, the well-behaved kids, the glamorous housewife routine. Things that look possible. If only you had a little more money, a little more time, a little more discipline. That tension keeps people hooked. And here's the paradox. The traditional wife image she leans into isn't actually traditional at all. Because Nara, and many influencers like her, aren't just homemakers. They're entrepreneurs. They've monetized the image of domestic perfection, turning what looks like a sacrifice into a lucrative business model. It's the Tradwife paradox. These women aren't giving up work for the home. They're using the home as their work. In the end, that's why Nara divides people so fiercely. Some see her as proof that women can embrace domesticity without shame. Others see her as a performer, selling an illusion that pressures women with unrealistic standards. But regardless of where you stand, one thing is certain: Nara has mastered the art of making fantasy feel real. And in today's world, where attention is everything, that might be the most powerful skill of all. So, what does it all really mean? Nara Smith isn't just another TikTok mom making sourdough bread. She's proof of how carefully curated performance can shape culture, fuel debate, and capture attention in ways most creators can only dream of. By blending nostalgia, aspiration, and just enough controversy, she's built a brand that feels bigger than cooking. It feels like a movement. And maybe that's the secret. In a world where people are drowning in chaos, Nara offers the fantasy of control: a perfect kitchen, a perfect family, a perfect life, served in bite-sized videos. It's comforting, it's maddening, and it's impossible to ignore. The bigger question is, what happens when the fantasy breaks? When the reality of privilege, hidden help, or burnout slips through the cracks, will audiences turn on her or cling to the illusion even tighter? Because at the end of the day, Nara Smith isn't just showing us how to cook. She's showing us what we wish life could look like. And whether you admire her or criticize her, one thing is undeniable: she's mastered the art of keeping us watching.